Has anyone seen this trailer yet? It's a family man action movie starring, and I promise I'm not joking here, Bob Saul Goodman Odenkirk.
It's all good, man.
Now don't get me wrong, I love Bob Odenkirk. I've liked him in virtually every role I can recall seeing him in. And like a lot of people, I fell head over heels in love with the guy
Elevate your legs!
once I got around to watching Breaking Bad, and by extension, Better Call Saul. This flick is called Nobody, and from the trailer alone it seems to have a lot in common with John Wick, not to mention a few other action films. Its marketing makes no effort to hide this. The trailer itself boasts the involvement of a John Wick producer as a selling point, which I have a hard time faulting it for. Drawing attention to those connections is a pretty standard tactic for engendering enthusiasm with potential audience members. That being said, the number and particularity of these shared similarities alone invites commentary. They're both centered around a former hitman that leaves the criminal underworld to settle down and start a family, only to eventually go to war with a specific operator from that world when they commit an arguably avoidable act of justifiable violence. I mean, he's got special gold hidden in his basement. We see him vrooming around in a dope-ass muscle car. They even throw in an expo-dumping English dude from our protagonist's checkered past to help bring the audience up to speed on this universe's crime rules.
When you left, you abandoned a certain debt that needs repayment.
Jonathan, you got out once.
Even the title itself is reminiscent of, if not a direct reference to, a specific line from the first John Wick movie.
Who the fuck are you?
Me? I'm nobody.
It's who you did it to.
Who? The fucking nobody?
That fucking nobody. It's John Wick.
The whole thing sort of reads like fanfic of Taken and A History of Violence restructured to fit the Wick mold, aside, of course, from a general increase in levity.
Give me the goddamn kitty cat bracelet!
As serious as the action looks to be, at least the editing within the trailer suggests that it's going to have more of a sense of humor than other movies of its ilk. Which, if true, was a smart move. Viggo, Liam, and Keanu have an eighth of Odenkirk's comedy chops combined, so failing to give the guy a few jokes to sell would have been a criminal misuse of the performer tasked with carrying this movie. And just let me say, Odenkirk looks great. He seems as trim, grim, and believable in this role as any other somewhat over-the-hill action hero we've seen up to this point. If old Pee-Pants Neeson can make the jump from laudable portrayals of dignified historical figures to an entire franchise of loving father shoot-em-ups, there's no reason Bob can't take a swing at a similar payday. This whole subgenre of action movie, in which a world-weary everyman is forced to commit acts of violence against a predatory other in response to his broken, overly permissive society's inability to safeguard the well-being of his family, can trace itself back to one film in particular. And that would be the 1974 Charles Bronson vehicle Death Wish, the plot of which can be accurately summarized by all of that shit I just said. Now, I'm not the first person to notice the troubling nature of the themes on display in Death Wish and its somehow increasingly schlocky sequels, not to mention the truly disquieting manner in which these themes seem to resonate with the mostly straight white male audience that spurred the initial film into an ongoing series. So in an effort not to waste too much of your time retreading well-worn territory, we'll just say that Death Wish was a product of its time. Which is to say that it is cruel, violent, and racist, and oh look, the whole world is still all three of those things, good job us. This movie, the subgenre it spawned, not to mention the tone-deaf reboot that no one asked for, starring world-famous film brat and anti-masker Bruce Willis, all attempt, more or less successfully, to capitalize on the violent male power fantasy market that regrettably exists in our society.
Somebody has to do it!
And I mean, like, these works, and the people that spearhead their production, in no way deserve to be scrutinized for the part they play in reinforcing the still yet even broader culture of toxic masculinity that renders men and the society that they must navigate ill-equipped to deal with their negative emotions like anger and sadness in healthy ways. The prevalence and normalization of these brutal, graphic flights of visceral fancy definitely have no hand in promoting the narrative that harming others is permissible and even virtuous given sufficient reason, and that opting for pacifism, even in situations wherein the law and society at large would be likely to give you a pass, would make you some kind of shriveled cuck of a man. This movie's trailer doesn't attempt to push the glamorous romance of that ill-conceived logline within its 3-minute runtime. Labored sarcasm aside, this trailer is shameless about this almost to the point of parody. Just take a look at the big keeping up with the Joneses energy Bob's got brewing during the post-break-in exchange with his fellow bread-winning family man neighbor.
Heard you had some excitement last night.
Whom I can't help but notice is wearing a leather jacket and bragging about his desire to punch a theoretical stranger.
I wish they'd have picked my place, you know?
Which, I don't know, man. In film grammar, it just seems like it kind of screams lacrosse dad wannabe alpha male. Even the cop taking Bob's statement all but shames him for not splitting a petty burglar's head open with a golf club for daring to pilfer less than $50 worth of paltry trinkets from his semi-idyllic suburban home.
So they took maybe $20 and an old watch? Did you even take a swing?
No.
Which is somehow enough to push a man who, by all rights, has nothing to prove to anyone and should be well aware of it, to mercilessly dispatch a group of vaguely Slavic thugs who, I mean, yes, absolutely had it coming to them. But this isn't a news report. It's fiction. Someone wrote this scene on purpose to excuse all of the irreparable bodily harm. And I mean, I'm not gonna stand here and act like I can't access the appeal of movies like this on some level. I grew up watching movies like Braveheart and The Patriot, which I think clearly lends itself to a discussion regarding the pervasive Ouroboros of corrosive white male rage that we just don't even have time for right now. But the point remains that I, the guy taking so much time out of his day to publicly decry the negative impact that the unchecked production of this content has on our society, also sometimes indulges in daydreams about harming bad people that give him every excuse to do so. If you feel like this is a gotcha moment, I invite you to reconsider. The intended takeaway here is that rhetoric and ideals which confuse violence for strength are both insidious and many, to the point where otherwise peaceable dudes, such as myself, sometimes have thoughts along the lines of, God, if only I could just
Fuck you up.
a common enough sentiment, mirrored pitch perfectly in the form of self-expository narration, courtesy of nobody's would-be surrogate punchman.
There's a long dormant piece of me that so very badly wants out.
Heck yeah, Bob, release the beast.
Which, if we keep this man's background as a hired killer in mind, does not track. I don't profess to be some expert on the stony hearts of men capable of great violence, but guys that view hurting and or killing people as some kind of drug that they had to kick don't do as well as this character has in polite society. And I can guarantee you that this movie isn't trying to sell you on an accurate depiction of someone that does think this way. This line was written and used in the trailer in the hopes that it would resonate with men ages 18 to 50 who either have no relationship with true violence or an extremely unhealthy one. And if we narrow our beam a little here, it becomes pretty obvious that this particular scenario is attempting to play on the insecurities of middle-aged men that feel that they've been corralled into an inauthentic lifestyle by a society that has no use or respect for their virility. I mean, just compare the disappointed, embarrassed expression on Bob's wife's face while the cops take their statements at the beginning of the trailer, versus the look of astonished arousal that she gives him when, during a home invasion, he shoves his family into the basement and tells them not to call 911. Which, I mean, I can certainly get down with in a vacuum, but he's not asking her not to bother the family she witnessed having a cookout in the park. He's saying, take the kids downstairs and keep it mac and cheesy for me while I go murder a bunch of guys.
Don't call 911.
Now, far be it from me to judge people on their appearances, and believe me, I am totally calling it that this movie is going to have at least the wife, if not the eldest son, get in on the action before the credits roll, but given that film is a visual medium that often relies heavily on the preconceptions held by its audience in order to establish a given character's traits, and this lady is wearing this outfit, I'd wager that she's the kind of person that can be startled by a book falling from a high shelf, so I'm not sure how she's gonna deal with the news that her zipper-collared sweater-wearing husband is a former assassin. Probably by one-hand cocking a shotgun, or braining some guy with a frying pan, or some equally discordant yet somehow telegraphed attempt to mask shoddy writing with a hearty chuckle from anyone that's never seen an action movie made after 1994. I don't blame Bob Odenkirk for any of this, by the way. I mean, Octavia Spencer labored in relative obscurity for years, often in bit comedic roles, until she landed her role in The Help, which netted her a Best Supporting Actress win in the 2012 Oscars, only to follow it up with Ma. Now, maybe Ma is a sleeper hit that I overlooked due to poor marketing or personal apathy, but at first glance it struck me as a little more than an underwhelming teen psychological horror flick. Regardless, Octavia Spencer shouldn't be faulted for doing the movie. The overwhelming majority of actors need to keep taking roles if they want to keep getting roles, and virtually no career can guarantee that there will always be one waiting for you, with perhaps a few notable exceptions. My critique of what is on offer in Nobody is more on our culture at large, as well as the shameless frivolity with which the entertainment industry capitalizes on the dysfunctional precepts of manhood at play within it, thereby reinforcing and enshrining them within the zeitgeist.
This is Paul Kersey.
Do I wish that more actors in Bob's position were conscientious enough to turn down roles like this?
What does an actor want with a conscience anyway?
Sure, but Keanu, the internet's boyfriend Reeves, sure doesn't seem to be. And Bob Odenkirk doesn't have the youth-relevant cachet necessary to shill busted-ass, half-cooked, crunch-practice-produced video games to a disappointed consumer base, or the bank account one can only assume comes with that territory.
Why do you come?
But in the interest of fairness, maybe both me and this movie are the unwitting victim of an unflattering first impression. What if it's a very clever treatise on the state of action movies and how they glorify excessive violence in a time when, as a demographic, white, middle-aged, property-owning, cis-het family men do not need to be sold on a pro-violence narrative?
Hold up. You messing with my truck? You messing with my truck, dipstick?
Also, the theme song they chose for this movie is a Louis Prima song, which I only know because I heard it used in an episode of The Simpsons. Louis Prima is an old crooner from the 1940s and 50s. The song is called Just a Gigolo, I Ain't Got Nobody, which I can relate to, because, you know, I be fucked. Go to jail, okay?
Only the very best with just the right amount of dirty.
It probably only stuck with me due to the casual affinity for music from that era that the Fallout games managed to instill in me during my youth. Cut me some slack, I was young and New Vegas is good. I, however, don't have an explanation for why I was watching an episode of The Simpsons from such a recent season. Morbid curiosity, I guess.
This is the comedy police. The joke's too funny. I'm not going back to jail!
You can hear the song itself being alluded to in the audio for this sequence. I don't have the most well-rounded or current grasp on music, so I'm usually pretty surprised when I recognize trailer music unless it's especially mainstream. You really split the difference on your demo there, Zach. Way to cast a wide net. Proud of you. And is that? That is Christopher Lloyd. Wow, dude, this is incredible. I lost track of him after Cyber Chase.
You've been here 40 years.
It is great to see that guy still kicking and being in movies. I gotta be honest though. Like, it's not as if I'd thought he died. But noticing him in this trailer did sort of make me feel bad for going so long without checking up on him. Like he's my pop or something. Or whatever people call their grandparents. I was born in a shoe. Look how deep in his IMDb results they bury his Doc Brown credit. You know the guy writing actor biographies for a popular website specializing in aggregating and curating information regarding the production of films and television shows is a total TV nerd when they order a performer's roles chronologically. Then again, accepting that fucking task is also probably a reliable indicator. I appreciate that though. A lot of people don't know that he was in Star Trek. Even fewer people know about his role on Taxi. Or what the ugly apple dumplings Taxi is in the first place. Seriously, look it up and wait for Christopher Lloyd to wander into frame. It's something else. Nobody looks like it's going to be at least a decent popcorn flick. And I imagine I'll get some satisfaction out of seeing Bob Odenkirk star in his own action movie. Even if it blows. Which I hope it doesn't. A snippet of IMDb trivia claimed that Bob trained for 2 years to get into shape for this role. Which stands to reason, because as I touched on briefly a little while ago, what a snack. Just like, ooh, mwah,
Now, I would give it to you.
Plus, Christopher Lloyd again. I mean, what a treasure. I am genuinely curious about this movie. Hopefully it does well enough to get him the lead in others, but not well enough to justify a sequel. I mean, unless it's freaking incredible, in which case then yeah, sure, I'm here for all of them. I'll have to check it out once it becomes available on a streaming service to which I subscribe. It's supposed to hit HBO Max on Friday, February 26th, 2021. The same day that it hits theaters. It was originally slated for a 2020 summer release, but it kept getting pushed back for some reason. I wonder what that's about.
Movies are so important.
Welcome back to me screaming.
Maybe Doc Lloyd can hop in his time rascal and travel back far enough to find the ghouls that make these calls in their damn